There is nothing inside a caterpillar that is going to predict that it's going to become a butterfly. Ooh, boy, do I have a good one for you today. Speaking of butterfly, let's learn to fly today. Want to? Let's go get that nugget. Welcome to Phoenix Rising, a superior podcast for all of your transformative tools for personal and spiritual growth. Let's go get that nugget. Hey guys, it's Jen Mack, Lady of the Mind. Welcome to today's podcast where we're going to talk all about trusting the sacred pause. Now, we are about 5 months in to my Dark Night of the Soul journey. I'm trying to keep things in order so you can join the journey with me if you wanted to, if this was something that you wanted to experience. I do think that there's going to be a time in your life that it is something that's going to happen. It really is just this shedding of the old layers of the old version of you that is no longer working. And it's a very natural process, actually. And through the last several episodes, I've talked about the process, how it just kind of slows you way down and you just naturally go until you don't naturally go anymore. Meaning that when we're younger, it's like this developmental stage. You know, if you are a healthy young baby, young toddler, you just naturally progress through these stages. You shed, that you don't walk around in diapers anymore, and you start using the toilet. Like, you just kind of start naturally doing it. You start naturally walking. You start naturally progressing through those stages of life until you get to be about an adult. And then somewhere in there, we fight the change. But that's the only thing that's constant is change. And if you can get comfortable with change, you can get really comfortable, and not only comfortable, but you can really get in the flow of life. So when something happens, something shows up in your life, is instead of fighting what's out there, is looking inward and going, okay, what new version of myself do I need to become to go through this change? Now, we do that, not everybody, but you do that, if you're a woman and you go from living with your parents, moving out, living on your own, possibly living with your partner, then having kids or buying a house, you take on these new identities, these new roles, and it's really a beautiful process if you stand back and look at it. Otherwise, we'd all still be walking around in diapers. Nobody would be driving. Nothing would be getting done. No technology would be new. We would all just be kind of like beating our chests and drooling, right? There's not going to be any growth. And there's also not going to be any big dreams coming. And life is about that. Life is about seeing something that you want and figuring out a way to go get it. It's about living your life. And I've got a couple of really fun quotes to share with you that kind of help bring this whole thing into perspective. If you think about what we're called, we are called human beings, not human doings, which is great. But at the same time, what do? We are constantly doing. I don't know about you, but back then, for the past several years, 6, 7, 8 years, or more, 10 years, I've been really pushing my business forward. And the funny thing is I'm teaching about energy work and chakras and meditation and becoming present and whatever. And it's like, but I was so busy in my business that I wasn't actually being. I wasn't sitting and being. Now I was tapping into intuition. I was doing some energy work on myself, like clearing blocks. And so I was growing quickly, but there was still like this part of me that had one foot in and one foot out, but most of my foot was in, meaning it was in this old version of me that isn't stepping fully into this businesswoman that I wanted to be. Now, I don't know if this ever happens to you, where there's something in your life that you are wanting to move towards, but you're just like preventing yourself from moving towards it. Like you just aren't going. I hear a lot of women, a lot of my coaching clients are really unhappy with a certain area of their life. They're unhappy with their health. They're unhappy with their relationship. They're unhappy with their job. And most of the time it's they don't want to make the decision to go because they're afraid. They're afraid of what's going to be on the other side of it. And I said, there's a lot there that you can create for yourself. Now, I don't know, you take some of these really dangerous jobs like a firefighter, for example. And I remember reading about or watching a video or something about firefighters And and we have some of the houses around us that are just on these huge giant piece of property. And it's just this old empty house. And it's all cleared away. It's all in the dirt. And eventually they're going to have a fire there for the new firefighters to practice. And they will light the house on fire, and they will drive from wherever they drive to get to the fire on time and to put the fire out, and they'll work together. There's no people in it. There's no, unless they like put fake people, but it's not a human owned house. It's owned by, the fire department or whatever. And it's practice. And they go over and over and over and over and over and do this. And that creates this confidence. Well, here's the thing about moving forward and trusting this process is that you can practice in your mind. You can say, I want to be a business owner. I want to leave this job, or I want to be in this loving relationship, or I want to be thin and fit. And you can practice that over and over and over again in your mind. And what that does is it creates this confidence. Well, during this process, I'm about 5 months in, and I'm still pretty stuck. Like, I cannot hardly get out of bed. I don't want to do anything. I don't want to go anywhere. Now, mind you, this was over a year ago. And I say no to every opportunity that comes across my desk. And I don't want to leave the house. And it's becoming this weird, not weird, it's scary. And it was scary for me. It was scary for my partner. And we didn't know what to do. And we didn't know how long it was going to last. So I dove in head first. That's what I do. I research the crap out of things to understand more about myself, more about what I'm going through, trying to get myself some words and some meaning. And I came across some of these different quotes, and the one about human beings versus human doings, I'm like, okay. And in the last couple of episodes, I kept saying that all I wanted to do was just sit and like stare out the window. Well, as further reading, I was diving into like Carl Jung and Joe Dispenza and Joseph Murphy and Neville Goddard and Florence Scovel Shinn and like all these like old time, what's his name? Joe Dispenza is not old time. He's current, but all these other people are like early to maybe mid 1900s. And a lot of them was like, just trust that you're in this state. You're in this kind of quiet state. And I love using, and I talked about this in a couple episodes, but I love using the analogy or the example of a caterpillar turning into a butterfly, that he can't force it. You can't like hurry up the process. You have to sit in the dark and you have to sit in the silence. And that's why it's called the dark night of the soul. It's a very, very dark place. And if you don't know what's happening, it is very scary. And a lot of people, and I hope this isn't you, but a lot of people will just go and get medicated. It's depression. I don't really know. It's anxiety. I can't get out of bed. And a lot of medical doctors will just medicate you. They'll just, here's a pill, here you go, and I'll see you in a month. And what I've always been against is medication that alters your emotional state. I believe in go head first into your emotions. It's what I do. It's the coaching that I perform. It's how I talk about things on stage. That don't be afraid of your emotions. But in our society, we don't learn how to deal with our emotions. And they're scary sometimes because some of them can be very big. And I don't know what kind of, I want to say personality. It's not really your personality, but what kind of personality do you have? Like, I have a big personality. My emotions are very intense. And I'm coming up to it here, this in February, I don't think it's quite here yet in my journey, is I learned that I'm an empath. I learned that I'm highly sensitive. I learned that, I can feel other people's energy. I can feel the energy of things, animals, and of course my own emotions are really big and sometimes they're really intense. And I have never once been on medication, certainly at my own free will, to be medicated to suppress emotions. When I had my hysterectomy and oophorectomy, I talked about I didn't really talk about it, but in the last episode, it threw me right into artificial menopause. Well, that can be a real, you know what to deal with. Hot flashes, anxiety, big mood swings. And my doctor put me on these like antidepressants. And I had the surgery in January. I would say probably February I was taking these antidepressants until probably July. I hated them. They made me feel really numb. They had weird side effects. Like this one, I kid you not, could not stop yawning. And it wasn't just sleepy. It's just all of a sudden it would just trigger a yawn. Like I would have 14 of them in a row in like a 5-minute period. I mean, it was just this crazy. I'm like, I can't keep my mouth shut. And I said, and I just don't want to be on them anymore. And she goes, listen, you cannot just get off of antidepressants. You can't just flush them down the toilet and walk away. She's like, that can have serious side effects. I said, listen, by the end of the year, I am done with these. And so it was very adamant. And that was it. That was in 2017. It was literally my only one and only time of being on any kind of a medication that was to suppress or help me deal with emotions. And it was an awful experience. And I'm not saying that sometimes my emotions being so intense aren't an awful experience, but I just can't do that to myself because that's not how we're meant to live. And I don't want to suppress it. It's like, to me, it's like suppressing a volcano. Eventually, it's just going to erupt. So how about we just deal with it? All you're doing is prolonging and intensifying what could possibly happen. Now, I'm also not a doctor, so don't stop taking your antidepressants. Take them. Do what you got to do. Don't just stop taking them because I said, or I suggested. And I'm not even making a suggestion. This is my journey. This is what I did. I'm not making a suggestion about you and your medication. So please see your doctor if it's something that is, you're considering or whatever. But don't just stop taking them. They really can have serious side effects. So if in this process, the desire for me to just sit and stare out the window is so great. It is so great. I can hardly stop myself from wanting to do it. I started doing research about that. And I remember having this epiphany, really, or this insight, intuition, that is like, follow that inkling. Follow that. Trust that process. And I had several dreams that were a lot about trust. And I started to trust the process. And this was a journal entry written in February 25 about this, trusting the process, is I must recondition my body to rest, relax, and reset. So I'm thinking, there's something there. Like that means something. Because if I have to recondition my body to rest, to reset, to recoup, to recharge, then that's something that I should do. Like I take my health seriously. And I work out, I eat right, I drink a lot of water. I do have a little bit of a sugar addiction. So I don't want to say I battle it, but I definitely manage it. I'm definitely very aware of it. I work out, I stretch, I do, I meditate, I walk in nature, I take breaks from technology. I work on all of this stuff because I don't know when my last day on this planet is going to be. But I want from the day is today to the last day on earth to be the very best it can be. Not only how it feels in my body, but the things that I can create in my life. And my goal is to help people like you, if you're still listening, to be able to trust the process that you're in. And I think that if my words can get out through my podcast or through my courses or programs or whatever I do, is to help you to lessen this journey a little bit, as in length. It might still be difficult because you're going to shed an old layer of yourself, and it's about new becoming. Well, that is a process. The caterpillar, when he's in the chrysalis and he's becoming the butterfly, it's a very dark, quiet space. I mean, if you could stare at that chrysalis for the 2 weeks that he's in there, you're not going to see anything. You're not seeing any movement at all. But he can't speed up that process. It's still about 2 weeks. You can't speed it up. You can't shorten it. You can't change it. But if there's a knowing there, if there's an understanding of what it is you're going through, then it does just kind of take the edge off a little bit. It's like when you get the flu. You get the flu now and you're like, it's going to be 2-4 days, or puking, diarrhea, whatever. I'm not going to sleep very well. And then all of a sudden you're like, but by Thursday I should start feeling better. Like you just know it doesn't take away that it's miserable during. But there's just the edge is gone. The fear of the unknown is gone. And that's part of what I'm doing now. And with this series of episodes, is just sharing with you what my experience was, and if I could just help take the edge off a little bit. So in trusting the process, here's what some things that I was doing where, I came across human beings, not human doings. And that's not my quote. I found that somewhere, but it's constantly, I have to relax the desire, the need, really, it wasn't a desire, the need to constantly be doing. that I said, it's constantly needing, quote, to do, and it's okay to just be. Wow. Like that was huge for me. I don't know if that's huge for you, but that was huge for me because it was really important to be like, it's okay, Jen. It's okay to sit for a minute. It's okay to sit for 10. It's okay to sit for 67 minutes. It's okay to sit for 3 days if you need it. It's your nervous system telling you you've been pushing, you've been forcing. It's time to just be, to just sit still. And then it was like, these were things I wrote to myself. I am resetting my nervous system. I am recalibrating my spirit. I am expanding, becoming elevated. I am stepping into a new version of me. That was exciting. I am integrating my vision. Now, that part was a little curious because this didn't happen in February, but is who am I becoming? You know, when I was very excited, I have a high freedom need, a high power need, and I was very excited to learn to drive. And I'd been driving ever since I was little. My dad had dirt bikes. He would take us on dirt roads. We could drive, you know, his Jeep or his truck. And he had a tractor. We would drive the tractor. We had quad runners. We were driving all kinds of things. I would drive my mom's car here and there. So by the time I was 15, learning how to drive, it really was no big deal. I'd been behind the wheel of a car of some kind my whole life. But the desire was so great that it overcame the fear of now driving on the road, paying attention to other cars and stop signs and yield signs and railroad cars or railroad crossings and stuff. People, pedestrians, kids, you know, because back then kids actually played outside. You know, occasionally a soccer ball would go flying across the road. You know, you had to pay attention. There was a fear there, but the desire was so great that I overcame that fear. So let me say that again. When you are moving forward in life, there's going to be a fear. But the desire was so great that it overcame that fear. The desire was so great. It's just like, well, there's two things. Like you have a job that you hate so freaking much that it makes you sick to get up in the morning to go to. That desire could get created that I want to move away from that thing. I want to move away from that relationship or ill health. You got some bad news, ill health, or a terrible job. There's that moves you away toward that desire, is that something is so dissatisfying that you'll move away from it. But I like to do it the other way. I like to stay ahead of it, to say, okay, this thing is kind of becoming uncomfortable versus it's making me sick to go to. The intensity isn't so great. Then I'm like, what do I want instead? And then I start kind of being on this other side that's like this creative side, this visionary side, this what else could be amazing in my life? If here's this thing that I'm like, man, this is kind of dumb or gross or I hate it or whatever. And I don't just stay there and let it get so bad that now it's affecting my health that I go, I'm out. Like I start being creative on the other side. So when it was here is I am stepping into the new version of myself is who do I want to become? And when I was learning to drive, it was like I could just envision driving everywhere. I want to drive out west. I want to drive to Florida. I'm going to drive to my friends in Ludington. I'm taking my friends to school. I'm going to drive to the movies. I'm going to have all this freedom. And that overcame every single time I got in the car with another adult learning how to drive through, back then was the city. And it overcame that fear. So I kind of used that same theory to move towards like, how long is this going to last? What is happening? I can't get out of bed. My emotions are so heavy and I'm doing the work that I'm used to doing. But what I needed to do was up my game. I had to change the work that I was doing. I had to intensify, turn up the volume kind of the work that I was doing. I had to learn new skills and techniques that I had all the way up to that point, that I had to do things differently. Not only out in the world, but I had to do things differently in my own body. I had to regulate my emotions. I had to breathe deeply. I turned to yoga. Dude, I didn't do yoga. Yoga was not a contact sport, so I didn't do yoga. Like I needed things to be, but like intense and fast, and I need a ball to chase, and I need, to dodge, and yoga was very slow. And I'm like, that's what I needed though. I started a yoga practice. That's what I needed. I needed to slow down. And so this was a very different process for me because I was very fast moving and very intense and very like all day long, push, push, push. And my nervous system just broke. And one of the things is part of the process is rest is part of the process. And here's what I wrote. Rest is part of the process. Slowing down is sacred. Ooh, like that hit me right in the heart. Slowing down is sacred. So that was a big deal. Like, I was already kind of slowing down, but I was trying to push forward. Instead, I moved back to the space and said, okay, let's create a sacred space for myself in my house, in this chair, in this room, over there, upstairs, outside, wherever. Let's create a sacred space and let's honor this process. That changed the entire trajectory of this journey for myself. Was it still hard? Yes. However, it became this sacred undoing. Or no, it became this sacred becoming, not undoing, but this becoming that I'm like, oh, okay. As Carl Jung would say, it's called the individuation process. Like you're stepping into a new version of yourself. And I'm like, okay, that's kind of exciting. I'm going to recreate a new, better version of like Gen Mac 2.0. I'm going to do that. Okay, let's do that. And then it became a little exciting, but the moments were still dark. The moments were still slow. I was still having a hard time getting out of bed. But while I was in bed, I was doing some of this creative processing. Oh, this is a sacred moment. Okay, I'm going to go light some incense. I'm going to play some music. I'm going to sit up in bed. I'm going to go get a glass of water. I'm going to drink some tea. I'm going to create a sacred space out of this journey. And it was really a beautiful journey. It was long. It was dark. It was lonely. It was in this unknown, but it became, now that I'm kind of on the other side of it, I understand it. And now this is where other people have to know this, because there are other people, especially coaches. You know, I have coach friends. Amy's a health coach, so she's got coach friends. And I keep hearing the same thing. I'm just so tired. I'm exhausted. I'm tired of pushing. I'm tired of working all the time. And I'm like, dude, you're heading towards burnout. And burnout is when you burn out the last little bit of your nervous system energy, and that is going to shut down. And then here I am. Now, while you're shut down, you can listen to my podcast. Another thing I wrote down. This is literally from my journal, you guys. I give myself permission to rest, reset, and recalibrate. Just be. I trust everything will unfold in its own perfect time. Isn't that beautiful? So I don't know where you are in your journey. I don't know how things are working out for you, but I do hope that in today's, it was just about trusting. Make this process a sacred process. You might only be able to sit for 5 minutes before your body is like, I got to get up and do something. And that's okay. Yesterday, I don't know if I mentioned it in these last few episodes, but we had some mold in our basement. I went to pull a book off a bookshelf and the book was soaked. I about lost my mind. And I pulled the bookshelf away from the wall and the whole entire wall was just covered in black mold. And it was a big deal. I mean, the whole entire office had to get emptied, all the books, all the shelves, the furniture got thrown away. Some books got thrown away, but then they also got replaced because I have to do that. I have over 500 books in my little mini library. And just yesterday, I was feeling a little bit anxious. Just yesterday, I was feeling a little bit anxious. My stomach was kind of a wreck. I sat outside. I have a hammock chair. If you don't have a hammock chair, you should get one. Sit outside, hammock chair. I have a pool sitting out there, not a swimming pool. It is a swimming pool, but I have a turtle in it. And so it's kind of a pond. And so I'm just like listening to the water. You know, I got a water feature. I'm just watching him. He's a giant red-eared slider. And just watching him, sitting in my hammock chair, I'm drinking some water, I have some incense burning. And then all of a sudden, I'm just sitting, I'm like, I'm just going to honor this space because I still have to do this. I still have to do this practice. I'm just going to sit in this moment. And then all of a sudden, I like got a bug up my butt to finish the walls in the office, which is this, this walkout room, this walkout basement. And it's been sitting there for a long time. We bought the walls, we got the stuff, whatever. And I'm like, I'm just going to kind of wait. I need my dad to help me. Like, I don't know how to cut these all down. I don't know how to do all this stuff. Sure as shit, did I go and cut all the walls? And I would say 4 hours later, all the walls were up. Now, the process, the carpet, all the paint, all that stuff has been done. It's just this section of wall that's right on the slider because it was a slider door that was leaking. So that first month, we got a whole new slider door. That's all been fixed. And then we're putting in like studs and insulation and whatever. And I just had to put the walls in the front. And waiting. And all of a sudden, I'm just like sitting in this space, quiet, hanging out with Rosebud, sitting on the basketball court, like sitting in my hammock chair, just lighting in. I'm just going to honor this. Literally 10, maybe 15 minutes. I'm like up and moving. I got all the stuff. I got the saw. I got all the whatever. And I had it done in like 4 hours. All the walls are done. And it's absolutely amazing down here. And it's beautiful. And the thing is that it went really easy. But I gave myself permission to rest for a minute. And it was just this beautiful thing. So if I had to leave you with anything from today's episode is trust where you are. But now this also doesn't mean don't do anything. Like you can still do the inner work because that caterpillar inside the chrysalis is doing work in there. He's doing work in there. And I can even say, he's envisioning becoming a butterfly. He probably isn't. It's just a process. But there is nothing in the caterpillar that predicts that he's going to become a butterfly. But somewhere in there, innately, instinctively, he chose, he decided, and he did it. And he comes out of there, and it's an absolutely beautiful life experience to watch and witness this caterpillar breaking free, the butterfly breaking free of the chrysalis, the whole process. And now he flies off. And it's a beautiful thing. And I think that where I am now, I'm close to flying off. And I hope you will continue to join me in my podcast, and you will continue to you can search for me on Facebook, just Jen Mack on Facebook, and reach out, ask questions. I hope that if you are in any kind of a dark night of the soul, is that these episodes are helping you. They're giving you just a little bit, knowing that you're not alone, that even wherever I'm sitting here in northern Michigan and wherever you're sitting listening to this, stuck in traffic or at your home or in the shower or on a walk, that you just know that you're not alone. And I'm here with you. And I hope that my story is helping to ease the suffering, give you a little bit of confidence, a little bit of excitement, knowing that you get to create what you want on the other side of this. And I hope you do. I hope you do. I hope you don't give up. I hope you keep listening. And I hope to be a continued part of your journey. Thank you so much for listening. If this episode resonated with you, please take a moment to follow the show, leave a review, or share it with someone who might need to hear this too. It truly helps this work reach more people. If you'd like to go deeper or support the podcast, you can find everything linked in the show notes, including a way to support the show or explore my upcoming events, circles, and free resources. I'm really grateful you're here. I hope this episode met you exactly where you are and gave you just one nugget of inspiration towards your transformation.